by creating these heroes and these narratives and putting them through circumstances, we're able to understand and rationalize what happens in our lives.
Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. We're Jason and Rachel Weatherford, and on this channel we discuss books, movies, faith, and family. Not necessarily in that order, but... So, in the last episode, we kind of introed you to who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we like to talk about. And we started really getting into it and into the subject matter. And we're like, oh, we could just go into another whole nother episode talking about this. And so, I think we can. I think we will.
I think we shall.
And we were talking about in the car the other day. So, okay. And what were we talking about?
Well, I was telling you about the newest book that I have finished, which, hello, I'm Rachel. I'm a bookaholic.
It only took an afternoon. It only took an afternoon, I'm sure.
Actually, I finished this one in a day. It's a really good book.
Surprised.
Highly recommended. This, I read a book by Kenley Davidson, and I have a Kindle Unlimited membership. This is not sponsored. We have no subscribers yet.
I'd love to be sponsored by Amazon, but
wouldn't that be lovely?
Ooh.
But I absolutely love having access to lots of different genres of books and being able to just pick and choose. So that's my jam.
We'll put the information about the book on the screen so that people can pick it out later. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to, it's called By Blood Oath Bound. Again, Kenley Davidson. It's Night Elves of Abrea, Book 2. Kenley Davidson is a clean writer. Romance, Night Elves, it's fantasy, and just a really fun, really strong writer. The description of the book on Kindle is better to die than to swear a blood oath to a clanless night elf. Sky has had enough of being used for her magic. She's been betrayed one too many times, and now she wants nothing more than to be left alone. But fate won't let her hide for long. Something evil is stalking the residents of her village, and they think she's just the person to stop it. Sky could never resist a cry for help, but the creeping darkness is growing and leaves her no choice but to escort a handful of terrified refugees across the border, to a place that may not be much safer than their dark magic-infested town. Roan never expected his band of outcasts to be invaded by a horde of helpless humans. They're on the run from a voracious creature of dark magic, and the only thing holding them together is a bewitching human mage with a chip on her shoulder and a willingness to face hell itself to keep her promises. Roan knows within minutes of meeting her that his world will never be the same, but she doesn't want his help. In fact, she wants nothing to do with him, but the danger she's facing is a threat to humans and night elves alike. So if he has to convince her that he's a bloodthirsty villain to get her to accept his help, he'll do it. And far worse, if it means saving the life of the woman who inexplicably owns his heart. So, yeah, I read a lot of fantasy. I read romance, I read westerns, I read, just a wide genre of things, but this is one of my favorite types of stories, so I'm sure that I will feature a lot, and you'll pull in kind of all of the rest of the stuff that I don't read, because between the two of us, we have a pretty good scope.
I do a lot of science fiction and some modern stuff. Like I've done like spy thrillers, especially the closer that they hew to real life, or at least seeming real life spy work with a little bit of, that Jason Bourne kind of interest. I like some of that stuff. I haven't gotten into it too much, but
and I will say that I used to read a little bit more sci-fi, but the intensity is so much more in those that kind of the older that I've gotten, I like to mix up those really intense and more difficult to read books with ones that are a little bit lighter and fluffier. So just kind of bouncing around.
Some cozy, any cozy elements?
Yeah.
Like that. I think right now cozy is like really big with certain genres because
people's lives are so
stressful. They want something that's like kind of chill. But yeah, okay.
Over Christmas especially, there's a lot of like cozy Christmas, you've got ones that are just based around coffee shops and mysteries and, mysteries and romances and all of that kind of stuff. So there's some really depending on what kind of things you read.
It's like somebody working in a fantasy version of Starbucks or something.
But one thing that did stick out to me about this book, and it kind of, as we were thinking over, what is the thing that we want to cover on our first real episode of things, going into the very foundation of what makes a hero. And so that was what we wanted to kind of start talking about. And because it's foundational to stories, every story has a hero. And that's why we love them. That's why we read them. If they didn't, what would the story be?
Yeah. And in this case, I talked with Rachel about this on the drive where I said, I know people get hung up on, gendered words. So in this case, I'd like to, again, I'll ask you, I like to use the word hero rather than hero or heroine, because whenever I've seen somebody say, like they said, somebody saved somebody from a fire, and they would be a woman firefighter. Okay. And they would say, thank you, you're a hero. They didn't say, thank you, you're a heroine. You know what I'm saying? So I think, honestly, in my mind, it's just to make it easier to just call anybody that meets these criteria or this basis would be a hero.
I will have to say most of the books that I read are about women. Mm-hmm. There are some that, it's the main character or the main lead is a man. But I think that most books, especially in the in the genres that I read, are made for women, especially if they are romances. So you just don't catch guys reading romances very often.
I can read a book and go, whether a man or a woman wrote this, it's for a man. You can tell I can tell when someone writes something and there's things about, obviously that's what I am. So when I read it, I go, oh, that's going to appeal to men because the character is seen as cooler than they could be, or, there's different things that would appeal. And I think we can probably go over that and say what kind of hero appeals to just a man. But again, there are women that go, well, I really liked that character, even though it was a male. And even though it was written to be appealing to a man, a woman liked it, and not in a attracted way, but in a,
it is
I like that character.
Isn't it? Like, I never really thought about it, and this was not something we were going to go into.
No, it just comes up, doesn't it?
Just how I think that books and video games are probably some of the most gender-oriented things in our society currently.
Can be, yeah.
What do you guys think? Would y'all agree with that? Or am I just completely oblivious to a bunch of other things? Maybe I am. I don't know. But it seems like, you have very, very specific genres that are aimed towards women, that are aimed towards men. And then you have video games, which just most of them are aimed towards guys. And then you have the ones like Candy Crush. And so we wanted to first define what a hero is, right? And you want to take point on that?
I could tell you what Oxford says. You have me on my phone?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know we were going there. Okay.
Well, I just want to know what a bunch of people that decided what it meant said it meant. It's a sandwich. No, kidding. No, actually, that's what it says. No, a person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. That says the chief male character, but I like that has mythology and folklore. It does say
just for the sake of
that's good.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's pretty good. It did say that it was a person of superhuman qualities when it comes, or semi-divine origin when it comes to Greek myth. But we're probably going to hew more towards something that someone could actually be in modern society. No superhuman needed for this.
Well, we were musing that while a lot of times heroes do have, they're put into the place of leadership, or of having to be the one. You're the chosen one, right?
Yeah.
Because of their abilities, or because of the circumstances, whatever it is that they have that's unique about them. For Harry Potter, it was Voldemort chose him, right?
Right.
But the thing that makes a hero, like the number one thing, is that They choose to step up. They choose to actually be the one that takes the responsibility. And that's the thing in the book that I was talking about at the beginning by Kenley Davidson, that you had two different people who were very much unlikely heroes. They didn't want to be, they didn't choose to be, and yet they were the ones that were put into positions of leadership. And you had Sky, who all that she wanted was to be alone. She didn't want to be used anymore. She had magic, she had abilities, but she had been used her entire life. And so she tried to just cut everybody off and just live by herself. And it didn't work.
So Sky is the now. Sky is the mage with the chip on her shoulder. Okay, so I'm getting it.
Right.
I'm going off your description.
And then you've got Roan, who's the night elf.
Okay.
And he is kind of the leader of this band of outcasts, right? Who, again, he is the leader because everybody else chose him to be the leader. He never put himself in that position. He never wanted that. But
reluctant heroes.
Yeah,
sometimes.
these are, again, they're reluctant, and yet what made them leaders is because when challenges came, when the horrors of whatever,
the horrors of whatever, etc. Yeah.
So when those challenges arose, they chose to actually do what was right. They put aside their self-interest and they did what was needed for the group. They stepped up.
One quick point to make. You said this was, and you were saying this. I was like, oh, because I heard you said chosen one, and I was like, oh, because that it's almost if you're not careful, it gets overused. And I thought it's not so much the chosen one, it's the choosing one, because that's a big thing. Is a hero makes a choice, and you kept saying they choose, and I'm saying, so someone didn't say, oh, you're the one, and they're like, well, I don't want to be, and they just fight it the whole time. They may fight it for half a minute, but when they find their agency and their choice, it's their they are the engine driving the story. Plot is about character ultimately, but that's what I was thinking. You said choosing, and I was like, the choosing one.
So we said that really being selfless is the defining characteristic of a hero. We said that it's not as much about ability as it is about having a desire to do what's right, about having a strong moral compass, about having a conviction of what is right and what is wrong. That those who can't stand up for themselves need someone to stand up for them. That those who are weak need a protector. And a lot of times, especially in stories, these heroes are faced with something that seems impossible, that really there's no reason for them to keep going or to think that they actually could conquer and could come out. And we, the readers, we always, in a book, we go, oh yeah, it's going to work out, because we trust that there's going to be that happy ending, that there's going to be that love conquers all, right, moment of it will happen. They'll come through somehow. We know that it will. Just taking that back to real life, right? I think that is a hope that we have to hang on to. That's one of the things that I love about fiction, is that it teaches us to believe in something bigger than ourselves, to hope that if it hasn't worked out, that it's because the story isn't finished yet. That when things seem the darkest, that's when that deliverance will come. And in that, I think that it teaches us about God. It teaches us about faith.
One thing you were saying is we know that they're going to make it out, or they're going to make it through. And it reminded me real quick of a game that I played before. One of the lines in it is, it says, that it's not a question of whether they're going to ultimately come to the end of the adventure or whatever you're playing and you're going to have a success or have some kind of closure. It's what will it cost you? as the hero? What will it cost you? There's a risk. If there's no risk, why? Because it uses dice in this game. Why would you roll dice? It's just if it's an easy thing, let them do it. If there's a risk, if there's a consequence of success and failure, then have them roll that. So to me, there's got to be an element of risk. The risk to the hero's life, maybe, or the ones that they love, or to a community that they represent, someone that they're protecting or guarding. It's not necessarily they're not putting their life and going, oh, I'm risking my life. Oh no. They're putting someone else's life. They put someone else above themselves. And I don't think that God could be the hero unless put himself in flesh and had something to risk. And that's a big mystery. How could God risk anything if God is in flesh? And that, again, these are things that theologians and mystics and people all different types have been thinking about for a couple thousand years now. So to me, that the hero's got to risk something. They're going to risk staying where they're at or taking that step out and into the unknown, into something that the unknown is fear. So, and that there. Okay, what about bravery? So yeah, courage.
Yeah.
Sorry, one step on that.
Well, and that's the thing. You hear defined so many times. Disney princesses pounded that into us, right? That being brave is simply continuing on. It's not about feeling like you can conquer everything. It's not about yourself, right? It's not about your feelings. It's about your actions. Yeah. Heroes are undoubtedly brave in the truest sense, but that's, the flip side is they're not perfect. I think that's such an important thing that you see over and over again. If we had written that heroes were just perfect, they never doubted themselves, they never made mistakes, they wouldn't be relatable.
Sometimes I will ask somebody, okay, who is more of a hero? And I'll name two famous characters. It would be Batman and Superman. Superman is about as invincible as it gets. In the truest sense of the word, Superman, hey, don't cancel my beat. Superman is not a hero. Gosh, I'm losing my cred by saying that. In the sense of the word, in the sense of their risk that they put on the line. They risk the lives of others. And so they can't do it all, and so they have to pick and choose. But Batman is mortal, he's fallible, he could die. But Superman is invincible. And some people, I've heard this, some people can't relate to Superman. He's gone through different power levels throughout the comic book years. I've read up on this and got caught up, and it blew my mind how powerful he is right now. And I found that I couldn't relate to that as much. It's almost like he's too godlike, and he's not the human enough in his portrayal.
I don't know,
Too
because
OP is what they call it, overpowered. And
it goes back to choice, though, because
relatability.
Superman is a hero because he makes the choice to actually stand up for those who are weaker than him. Because he could just as easily be a villain. He could be somebody who used all of that power and all of that ability for his own selfish gain.
And in some of the stories,
and instead he uses it
he
to protect
did
other
go
people.
bad. Oh, there's a really good quote about Superman from the comic books. Let's see if I can remember it. He says, Batman is saying, sometimes when you look up in the sky, okay. Forget the picture, but I don't know why they have that. Okay.
That is hilarious.
There's a quote that Batman gives about Superman. He says, it's a remarkable dichotomy in many ways. Clark is the most human of us all. Then he shoots fire from the skies, and it's difficult not to think of him as a god. And how fortunate we all are that it does not occur to him. So if they say, if not for, what was it? If not for the grace of God, go I, or something like that. It's so easy for someone given that ultimate power to just switch and go and do something that may seem heroic to you, but villainous to everyone else. That's why it's hard for me to relate to Superman. The line that I thought about, and I'll pass it back off to you, I promise.
No, you're fine.
So there's a line in Superman the movie. Jor-El is saying this to Superman, I think it's either in his little ship or something, to him later. He says, you will be, I'm paraphrasing this, you'll be like a beacon to them. You'll be a symbol. They'll struggle to keep up with you and in what you're trying to inspire them with, but they'll soon walk behind you into the light. So you're basically showing them a better way. And even though they might not have the powers you have, they can aspire to do that and be inspired by you. And like, it's big. And of course, the new movie that's coming out has hope, has a really big through line to it. And Superman always has. He's more of the brighter, lighter side of things, whereas Batman is more about, I'm here to create fear. Those who do evil will fear me. And he's still a hero, but it's all in your approach. He's a villain to some, hero to others. And so I guess what I'm saying is if Superman were more mortal and there's more of a, would he still be Superman? That's a big question that I'm sure somebody could answer in the comments, but I don't know. So mortality,
the
I think,
interesting
has something
thing
to do with being
about
a hero.
Superman is that the reason why, like, there's always a motivation, right? The reason for Superman, why he chose to actually lay down his own selfish desires to be comfortable, whatever, at peace, by stepping out there and protecting people, he made himself a target. He didn't have to have any of that. But what motivated him to actually become a hero
Probably his parents,
was
his upbringing.
Yeah, actually living as a human,
He's more
seeing
from
people.
Kansas than Krypton. So
Yeah.
so it really is your upbringing, Ken.
It's your backstory.
But what if you don't have? Well, here's the thing again. Bruce Wayne didn't have a father or mother to raise him for the majority of his life, but he had Alfred, and Alfred instilled in him the balance. I'm sure he kept you. He's like, you're getting out of balance, Bruce. It's that moral angel on your shoulder to counter the darker side of yourself. And you always need a beacon. I mean, shoot, everybody has had a guide. Arthur had Merlin, Frodo and Bilbo had Gandalf, and also I would say also Galadriel. As a guide too. So there's always that guide. That's the thing. You even throughout myth, or fairy tales, you had the guidance character. That guardian, that wizard, almost kind of character.
Well, it's interesting
It's a lot.
because going back to Harry Potter, you've got so many quotable moments from that, right? Where it's like, it's our choices that define us far more than our abilities. But the thing about it is that Dumbledore deliberately put Harry in an upbringing where he was going to know hardship, where he was not going to be recognized, where he was not going to be admired. Deliberately did it because he said, if he were raised in our world where he was known, where he was, honored and admired, not for his own abilities, but because of, the circumstances surrounding his parents'
Does he think
deaths.
people in the wizarding world have it easy a little bit? Which some of us would say they might, because they're just like, they snap their fingers or move a wand and there's my food or whatever, something like, some people would say that
he potentially would have been spoiled. He would have had an easy life, but also he wouldn't have been able to make the decisions that led him to being the one to defeat Voldemort.
Do you think some people might say that God allows hardship in some ways because through the testing, what does it say, through the testing of your faith? What was it? The testing of your faith, you'll come out like gold? What was it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, because people both hate and love Dumbledore for that, right?
Ooh.
They absolutely despise J.K. Rowling for having put Harry through that. It's like, why couldn't you have just made it easier on him? I mean, he was literally abused.
It's not a perfect one-to-one comparison that we're making and say, oh, Dumbledore's God. No, but we're gathering little bits
but at the same time, it's a truth. There is a truth that's there.
Yeah.
That, when it comes to God, you have somebody that is so much bigger than we are as human beings. He has Dumbledore, they made him into this being that could predict and tell the future, which made him both loved and hated. Harry never resented him as much as a lot of the readers have resented him ever
Yeah,
since.
he's not, Dumbledore's not perfect.
No,
Yeah.
Dumbledore's definitely not perfect, but it really did give kind of that question that a lot of people struggle with God
Mm,
is, how does a loving God allow suffering? How
yeah.
come, he allows us to go through so much in our lives? Why doesn't he just make our lives perfect?
I don't have the answers for that. There's plenty of other videos and books that you can look at that might help you a little bit more than that. For me to say that I know exactly the reason why God allows da 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 da.
No,
Oh,
but that's the
I couldn't
thing.
deign
The
to
Bible
say
gives us stories. Jesus taught in fiction. One
with
of
the
the
parables. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the wonderful things that we have and that we've always had is the ability to be able to examine our lives through fiction, through stories, by creating these heroes and these narratives and putting them through circumstances. We're able to understand and rationalize what happens in our lives, the hurt and the suffering and the pain that we go through. We're able to get kind of more of an outside perspective on that, and we can see some of the meaning behind it, because every time, and we'll take this to Ethan, our son who has autism. One of the things that I ran into as being a mom of a special needs child is over and over and over again, I had so many people that said they wanted to have a reason for why this had happened, for why God had allowed it. And I think that we all do. Whenever it's the first thing that we do as humans, right? We try to justify. And I struggled with that so much. I would have people say, well, he's going to be healed. And then I'd have other people that said, well, God only gives special children to special parents. I hated that one
Yeah.
because it made it somehow about me,
Yeah.
that his experience in his life was somehow based around my specialness. No, I'm nothing special. All that I want for him, I don't want him to have a special life. I want him to have a happy life. I don't want him to suffer. I don't want him to struggle. And yet I know that he will. I know that all of my children will, whether they have special needs or not, that they're going to face that's sadness, that they're going to face loss, that they're going to struggle. The purpose and the meaning that we're trying to find in the struggles and the circumstances that come up, we don't always know why we face the things that we face. And we can speculate. We can say, well, if I hadn't faced this as a child, then when I faced this as an adult, then I wouldn't have known how to handle it. And we can always find those moments of meaning and of purpose, and that is beautiful. But there's always going to be those things that come up that you go, God, I can't find any meaning in this. This is too big for me to be able to actually say, oh, there was a reason. It's too much hurt when you have a child that dies, when you have someone that just is living with pain, chronic pain, to the point where they go, I don't want to carry on. Trying to find a purpose and a meaning in that, it does come back to just trusting that God knows when I don't know, when I can't explain, that the one who created the universe, that I can trust him to bring a meaning from that pain, to actually have a purpose, because we do need a purpose to our pain. And that's something that we find in fiction, that we find in that happily ever after. And I think that we humans crave that. Yeah. That got a lot deeper than I meant to.
Well, a lot of for me, a lot of movies that I watch, the ones that are that they're at different levels of affecting to me. There's even movies where they don't end on a really, what you would say, happily ever after positive note. But what it did is it made me feel something. It either a heartache that just did, it was either the actors or the way the story, or the way that the way you can empathize with these characters or their situation. Even though you're not going through that, it it evokes those emotions in you. If it's not a, we call it catharsis in storytelling, they call it catharsis. If it's not a catharsis for the characters, it's a catharsis for you. Is that, and it's your choice how you come out of that. So I think there's something good about an ending that's maybe bittersweet. But yes, some of the most rousing books, movies, TV shows have been those that, the hero doesn't come through unscathed. They may be bloodied, beaten down, either emotionally or physically, but they get through it. They either live and, and people are, saying thank you for what you did, or they give the ultimate sacrifice of their life and people say thank you to what they did. So either way, and I really connect with those media where someone finds that bravery and gets through past that point of fear. And I sacrifice for my family, I hope I do every day, but to sacrifice to something big, for something even bigger than that, like a country or a community or even just a family member, a brother. It's very affecting, and we connect with that. We as the experiencers of those stories connect with those things, and those are universal. I think that those are universal things. It's only the most cold person whose life is just beat down that can't relate to those, and I feel sorry for them. But the vast majority of people that because if they didn't touch us, we wouldn't see these story elements come up again and again. We connect with our humanity. It's because they work. They work every time. You can make them cheesy or you can make them real, but I'm so, go ahead.
Are we are we sprinkling again?
Oh, the sprinkling. What we did from the first introductory episode.
You're gonna find some way to
it's
work
piano.
that little
It's sprinkling. It's
sprinkling
piano hands. Yeah,
into
it's
every episode.
It's playing
our
emotions it's playing our emotions like a keyboard. Yeah, and it works. It works. And fight it or not, those heartstrings things. You may go, oh, well, they plucked it, but when they do it right and it feels genuine and sincere. There's the word. When it feels sincere, you're really affected by that. But it has to come from the creator of it, the author, the director, the actors. They have to come from a place of sincerity, because that's why people go, oh, there it goes. They played that little, they played you like a harp, and we feel used by that. But when it's sincere, we genuinely connect with it, and that's when it works. When it's treated as if it's just, oh, this is just something we're doing to pull an emotion out of you, it has the opposite effect.
So that does kind of lead us to our other kind of point that we wanted to talk about, is why are heroes important? So we talked about what kind of defines a hero. We threw out a bunch of different things, which we would love to hear from you guys. What do you think are the defining characteristics of a hero? There's going to be so many things that I'm sure that people will want to throw in, because a lot of what makes a hero depends on us, on what we value, right? But the other thing is, why do we as humans need heroes? And to me, I think that it is so important to have something to look forward to have something, well, not to look forward to so much, but to define what we want to be. And that's
Aspirational.
Yeah, somebody to look up to and to say that's the goal.
Can we emulate those things? I mean,
Right.
you may see, sometimes the heroes have extraordinary abilities that we don't have. Sometimes they have extraordinary training that we don't have. But there's elements of those heroes and a mindset and a choice in what they're having to face that we connect with. We may not be able to be a one-to-one, share everything about that character, but we can emulate. We can say, you know what? I mean, that's why you've got this firefighter, soldiers sometimes, or whoever that will put themselves in harm's way, and they might have a local Superman tattoo on their shoulder or something like that, or Captain America, or something that, I don't know, something they're connecting with that hero and going, I'm gonna do that for real.
Are we thinking about who we actually set up to be our heroes? And that's the other thing is, we take in all the time in every movie that we watch and every book that we read and every interaction that we have with our parents, our teachers, those people in power around us. We take in this sense of what is it that I think of as normal, as a standard. What is the baseline that then if I want to be a hero, I go above this baseline, but what is my normal? There's going to be people that just, what sets my moral compass? Are we actually examining by what we take in how much that sets our standard? Are we being intentional about who we place? And that's one of the things that I really wanted to do while we're talking through this stuff, is actually going, no, let's actually think about this. Let's examine it. Let's pick it apart, because it's important. It starts defining who we are as human beings. It sets our standard of normal behavior. And so that's, one of the things that I think is the why heroes are important, why examining our heroes are important, why actually picking those things apart. And it takes me back to Twilight. Oh, it's the classic example, of how many people, because Twilight, I mean, people will argue about it. Was it good? Was it not good? There are people who love it. There are people who hate it. But undeniably, to me, the books were well written. They were extremely well written. But it set a standard of normal because you sank into Bella Swan's mind. You got to know who she was and how she thought, and you started justifying all of her decisions. You understood them. And people who really enjoyed the books defended how right she was. And the fact that, everything turned out wonderfully for her, and she went, it ends with her going, I was created to be a vampire. This is who I was always meant to be. I'm just
hearing you say that phrase, I'm just going, oh boy. But no,
I
it
found
makes
who
sense.
I was
But I'm
meant
just
to
like,
be.
okay.
But the journey and all of the steps that she took to get there, how just codependent she was on Edward, how codependent he was on her, how unhealthy so many of their steps were on their path. It was disturbing. And so it's one of those that, as my teenage girls came up, and I went, okay, it's time, we're gonna expose you to the Twilight phenomenon here, and we're gonna talk it through. That I wanted to really take, and as we're watching these movies, going, so what was right about that decision? What was wrong about it? And really just picking it apart and examining it, and
Was
teaching
that
them
realistic,
to think,
or was that something that would happen in real life
yeah,
if this was really happening?
because it's not like everything that Bella did was wrong, but not everything that she did was right either. And so often we fall into the trap of, if we understand the reasoning, we think it's right. And then we take that, not only, it's a lot easier to pick apart a fictional character than it is to pick apart a friend who's going through a circumstance where they're making decisions that are harmful to them. And then they're having to face the consequences of their own actions. And we're sitting there, we just, as friends, we want to be supportive and we want to back them up because they've been telling us why they're doing everything. And then we just become enablers rather than people who actually are helpful to point them towards something that's better.
There is a nugget in what you're talking about that I think could be its own episode of our show. Is the shadow side of, you have the hero, then there's the shadow side of that, where we can get into hero worship, or we can get into putting that hero on a pedestal, use them as a vessel for all our higher aspirations and our higher morality. And we don't see that there's something, they're not perfect and they're doing things that are not great. That's why when you have fictional characters, you don't have those elements. But the danger of it can be that we take somebody and put all our hopes and dreams into them, and when they fail us, then we have our all these images that we had crash to the ground. I mean, we could talk about a celebrity, an actor, a politician. You can have, oh, this actor is so great, da 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 da, and then you find out somebody leaks something out, and this person is reprehensible. What are you going to do with that? And ultimately, that hero that was inspiring you to aspire to be like them, should we be careful about about our real life heroes that we're choosing are, or even our fictional heroes? You know, are there some heroes that maybe we shouldn't pattern after, and maybe we should pick and choose and go, well, that part was good, but yes, they're weak just like we are, and you know, there's a relatability to that. Who knows? So maybe that's the shadow side of heroes we could talk about at some point. But there's a lot in that last little bit you were talking about that's it's big.
Navigating life with the help of fiction. That's a
How is that
it's
not?
an interesting concept,
That's a
isn't it?
tagline. That almost sounds like something we could put in our description of every one of our episodes. Navigating life through fiction and also faith. I mean, it's what helps me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately, a lot of stuff. There's a lot of, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people at church. Some guys that I know, they're just like we'll nerd out about the fiction stuff, and then we'll go, oh, and then we'll say something spiritual, like yeah, and it just kind of like, you know what I'm talking about. So, but anyway, a couple of guys at church, but
yeah.
So what? So
well, I think that was fun. I think that's probably a good place to put a pause for now, and
put a pin in that. Yeah.
hopefully we've had one or two people that might enjoy the conversation. We'll
You're looking at one. I really enjoyed that. You never know where these conversations are going to go. You think that you come up with some ideas. You go, oh, that might be good to talk about, but then it just starts flowing, and you just sit. Well, for me, I just sit back and just let you cook. You know, when you're just on it, when you're in the zone, I just want to just go, okay, just cook. But we're glad you spent tonight with us. Today, tonight, tomorrow, whatever day is. Do we say bye?
Bye.
See you next time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
See you
good.
next time. Bye.